She didn't steal my face. She stole everything else. Growing up as an identical twin meant never quite owning your own reflection. There was always another version of you walking around in the world, smiling like you, laughing like you, sometimes crying like you, but not you. For Claire, that mirror had a name, Lana. They had the same bone structure, the same moon-shaped eyes, the same dimple on the left cheek. But the similarities ended there. Lana sparkled. She moved through the world like it was built for her pleasure. She didn't just enter rooms, she shifted gravity. People turned when she walked in, pulled by something magnetic and a little dangerous. Claire, on the other hand, floated at the edges. She listened more than she spoke, read more than she posted, felt everything with raw depth. Where Lana wore fire, Claire held water. It wasn't competition, at least not at first. As children, they were close, braiding each other's hair, pretending to switch classes just to confuse teachers, whispering secrets under blankets. But adolescence changed everything. Lana discovered the power of being seen. Claire discovered the safety of being overlooked. By their 20s, the divide was quietly understood. Lana went into public relations, a natural performer with a curated Instagram and a closet full of statement pieces. Claire pursued graduate studies in psychology, fascinated by the mind's ability to rebuild after breaking. They still called each other weekly, still said, "I love you," at the end of every conversation. But underneath, a quiet erosion was already happening. Then came Daniel. Claire met him at a university lecture. He was a guest speaker. A rising neuroscientist with a scruffy charm and eyes that missed nothing. His talk had been on memory retrieval and emotional coding, but it was the way he spoke that got to her. Gentle, deliberate, almost reverent. After the Q&A, she waited until the room emptied before approaching. Their first conversation was awkward, sincere, and somehow already intimate. He asked her to coffee. One coffee became three. Three became dinners, movie nights, quiet mornings with tangled sheets and whispered theories about the subconscious mind. Daniel wasn't flashy. He didn't make grand gestures. But he made Claire feel known, like she could exhale around him, like she didn't have to explain the weight she always carried in silence. For 2 years, she loved him. They were the kind of couple that didn't take many pictures. Everything between them felt too sacred to post. He called her his still point in a turning world. She called him her anchor. Even Lana seemed to approve, offering teasing compliments, calling him cute in a sad professor sort of way. She never lingered too long when he was around. But then again, Claire never asked her to. The unraveling didn't happen loudly. There was no screaming, no betrayal written in lipstick on a mirror. It was a series of quiet absences. Daniel began rescheduling plans, deadlines. He'd say, or, "My research team's behind schedule." Claire believed him. She'd never had reason not to. Then Lana stopped answering calls. Texts came late. Conversations felt scripted. Still, Claire told herself everyone was busy. People drift. Life ebbs. Until the night they both disappeared. Claire had been planning a small birthday dinner for Daniel. A surprise with his favorite Indian takeout and a new leather-bound journal she'd had custom-made. But when she called, his phone went to voicemail. She tried again, and again. Eventually, she texted Lana. No reply. 2 days passed, then 4, then 7. No one had seen either of them. Panic set in, real panic. The kind that makes your skin hum and your mouth taste metallic. Claire filed a missing persons report. She called hospitals. She barely slept. And then, one morning, a white envelope arrived at her parents' house. It was heavy, thick stock paper, perfumed and sealed in gold. An invitation. The families of Lana Grace Caldwell and Dr. Daniel Everett. Request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration. Santa Barbara, next month. Claire's world turned soundless. She read the card again. And again, certain she was hallucinating. Then her mother entered the room, holding her own copy, her face pale, her lips trembling. "What's going on, Claire?" Claire opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "She said you knew," her mother whispered. That you gave your blessing. That you were seeing someone else. Claire dropped the invitation. Her mother didn't believe her. Her father didn't either. Her aunt called to say, "You always were the quiet one. Maybe you just weren't enough for him." Lana's Instagram flooded with photos, the dress fitting, the vineyard, the custom calligraphy, Daniel's arm always around her, Lana always front and center. Claire deleted every app. Then she packed a single suitcase, withdrew what little savings she had left, and vanished. No goodbye, no confrontation, no closure. She left behind the city where her face had been mistaken one too many times. She left behind her name. And she walked into the silence that would shape the woman Lana would never recognize again. You can disappear without dying. When Claire left, she didn't run, she drifted, like fog rolling off the edge of a lake in early morning, silent. Slow, deliberate. There was no dramatic exit. No suitcase slammed shut or taxi screeching into the night. Just a quiet closing of doors, her phone powered off, her email deactivated, her name retired. Claire Caldwell faded from every digital registry, every contact list, every memory that wasn't persistent enough to fight the pull of time. She boarded a train south with no clear destination, just a growing instinct to be nowhere she'd ever been. She landed in a coastal town 2 states away, a place too small to show up on tourist maps and too quaint to raise questions. The air tasted like salt and pine. The streets were dotted with fishermen's cottages, second-hand bookstores, and diners with chipped coffee mugs. It felt like a liminal space, half forgotten by the world. Ideal for a woman trying to do the same with herself. She rented a 1-bedroom apartment above a florist's shop. The windows overlooked a stretch of sea so still it seemed painted. Her neighbors were kind but not curious. No one asked what brought her there. No one recognized her face. For the first time in her life, she could breathe without wondering who she reminded people of. She changed her last name to Elliott, her mother's maiden name, and enrolled at a local college extension program, with her prior credits and coursework. It didn't take long to pivot her focus fully toward trauma therapy. She wanted to understand how people broke, and how they survived. She read endlessly, her mind hungry for frameworks to understand her own fracture. PTSD, attachment injury, narrative exposure. She devoured it all. The pain didn't vanish, but it became language, and that was something. Claire rarely spoke unless necessary in class, but she listened with an intensity that unnerved some and comforted others. Her professors noted it, the quiet student with razor-sharp observations and ink-stained notebooks. During practicums, she was assigned difficult cases. Survivors of abuse, veterans, children in foster care, people whose inner scaffolding had collapsed and were slowly rebuilding it from the inside out. In each of them, she saw parts of herself. At night, she wrote in her journal, sometimes letters to no one, sometimes letters to Lana that she never intended to send. Most ended with questions. Did it feel like love? Did you see me disappear? Did it matter? She didn't date. The thought of letting someone see her again felt impossible. She didn't need another betrayal. She needed silence. That changed 2 years in. It happened on a Tuesday. She had been attending a trauma-focused group therapy workshop at the local VA center, a clinical rotation she hadn't signed up for, but was placed into last minute. The room was standard, beige walls, plastic chairs, a whiteboard with fading ink. She sat in the back, notebook open, half listening. Then he spoke. His voice was steady, but low, like gravel soaked in water. Sometimes I wake up and my body's here, but everything else is still back there, in the tent, with the sounds, with the silence after the sounds. That's the worst part, the silence. She looked up. He was tall, broad-shouldered, mid-30s maybe, with a slight limp and a gaze that didn't dart, it held. His name tag read, Dr. Eli Turner. He wasn't there as a patient. He was leading the group. Former Army medic, multiple tours in Afghanistan, now a trauma physician working in both physical and psychological recovery. He spoke to the veterans not like a clinician, but like a brother. No pretense, no distance. Claire watched him as he watched others. He didn't flinch when they cried. He didn't fill silences with soft platitudes. He just waited, present, anchored. After the session, she stayed behind to collect materials. He approached, nodding toward her notes. "You have clean handwriting. That's rare in this place." She smiled. "Barely. Occupational hazard. Student, intern, almost licensed." He extended a hand. "Eli, Claire." And that was it. But the next time, he remembered her name. The next time after that, he remembered what she'd said about emotional flashbacks. Slowly, conversation crept into the gaps. First about patience, then about books, then music, then nothing in particular. He never asked about her past. That was what made her trust him. Over months, they began sharing coffee between sessions, then walking to the pier, then dinners, first with colleagues, then just the two of them. He didn't touch her unless she initiated it. He didn't ask for more than she offered. But he noticed things, like when her hands shook after an unexpected loud sound, or when she left a room if someone said the word, "sister." One night, as they sat watching the tide come in, he said softly, "You don't have to tell me anything, but I want you to know that whatever it is, it's not too much." She didn't cry, but something cracked open. The next week, she kissed him, slowly, on her own time, and he didn't move, just let her come to him. They dated for a year before she let him see the inside of her apartment. Another 6 months before she told him the whole story. Lana. Daniel, the wedding, the disappearance. He didn't speak right away. Then, simply, "You didn't vanish, you adapted." They married in the fall. A courthouse ceremony, just them and the ocean nearby. No vows for show, no announcements. Claire wore a navy dress and boots. Eli wore a tie she picked out. They celebrated with fish tacos and red wine under string lights behind a seafood shack. No one from her old life was invited. There was no reason to look back. Not when everything worth walking toward was right in front of her. Invisible didn't mean erased. She had disappeared, but not for long, and never without purpose. Some ghosts come in through the side door. It had been 7 years. 7 years since Claire left behind the name she was born with. 7 years since she last saw the faces that once felt like home and now existed only in memories dulled by time and softened by healing. She had crafted a life around peace and purpose, around the quiet and patient art of helping others reconstruct their inner worlds. The trauma center where she and Eli now worked was a restored brick building tucked into a quiet hillside, shaded by tall sycamore trees and framed by the sound of water from a nearby stream. The center specialized in high-profile or complex trauma cases, war veterans, survivors of violence, patients whose pain was no longer just emotional but had woven itself into muscle, into bone. That Monday morning began like any other. A strong cup of black coffee, a review of the intake schedules, a nod from Eli across the hallway as he disappeared into a family session. Claire had her first consultation at 9:30, a high-profile referral from a hospital in Boston. The notes were vague but alarming. Patient is a 40-year-old male. Former university professor, noted for paranoia, insomnia, verbal outbursts, and possible psychotic features. Referred by spouse. Confidentiality requested due to academic reputation. Claire skimmed the profile. Name: Daniel Everett. The breath left her body before her mind caught up. The clipboard trembled in her hand. She reread it, every syllable stabbing her like a familiar blade. She hadn't heard that name aloud in years. Not since the day she walked into her parents' living room and saw it etched on the wedding invitation beside her sister's. Not since she disappeared. Claire closed her eyes. It could be someone else. There were hundreds of Daniels, dozens of Everetts. But when she turned the final page and saw the emergency contact line, Lana Everett, the illusion collapsed. She felt the blood drain from her face. The ground beneath her seemed to loosen. But years of training, of breathing through others' breakdowns, of holding space while people shattered, anchored her. She didn't move. She just breathed. She walked to the intake suite like she was moving through water. Her body was calm, controlled. Her hands didn't tremble. She stepped into the room expecting anything and nothing. Daniel was lying on the examination table, half sitting, his eyes darting from corner to corner of the room like he was watching something no one else could see. His once perfectly kept hair had grown unruly, and his jaw was shadowed with days of stubble. His hands twisted in the blanket, restless. Beside him, seated in the plastic chair, was Lana. Claire didn't flinch, not outwardly, but something inside her cracked in slow motion. Lana looked thinner, her skin pale, almost translucent. Her blonde hair was still perfectly maintained, but her shoulders slumped under a tailored coat that couldn't hide her exhaustion. She stared straight ahead, expression neutral, until Claire walked in. For the first several seconds, Lana didn't react. Claire approached the desk at the side of the room and set down the chart. Her face composed in a professional calm she had worn for years. Her hair was short now, neat and severe. Her voice was lower, more measured than the Claire of before. "Good morning," she said, not looking directly at Lana. "My name is Dr. Elliott. I'll be conducting the preliminary assessment." Daniel barely registered her voice. His eyes flicked toward her and away. Lana blinked slowly. Claire could feel the exact moment it happened, the pause, the narrowing of the eyes, the scan from chin to brow, the flicker of disbelief. Recognition arrived not all at once, but in waves, and when it settled, Lana's spine went rigid. She didn't speak, but her pupils dilated. Her hands tightened around the purse in her lap. Claire didn't blink. "How long have the symptoms been present?" she asked, her tone clinical. Lana opened her mouth, then closed it again. About 7 months," she finally replied, her voice brittle. "It started small, insomnia, mostly, then came the pacing, the rants. I thought it was stress at first. University politics, research funding. But then he started saying they were following him." Claire nodded, taking notes. The pen didn't shake. Daniel's gaze snapped suddenly toward her. "Do you hear them?" he asked. Claire paused. "Who?" "The ones in the wires." His voice cracked. His hands were trembling. His face, once the axis of Claire's world, now looked haunted. Claire didn't answer him. She only turned slightly, keeping her voice calm. "I'll need to run a full cognitive and neurological screen. He may require a 72-hour observation hold, depending on risk assessment." Lana was no longer hearing her. She was staring at Claire like someone watching a ghost recite a monologue. "I know who you are," Lana finally whispered, her voice low. Claire didn't look up. "Do you?" Lana leaned forward slightly, her voice unsteady. "Your hair is different. You sound different, but it's you." Claire finally raised her eyes, meeting her sisters for the first time in 7 years. "I'm Dr. Claire Elliott," she said evenly. "The past isn't relevant to Daniel's treatment. We'll focus on the present." Lana looked away, her throat tightening. "Does he know?" Claire's face didn't change. "He doesn't recognize me, not yet." There was silence. Claire turned back to the intake chart. She finished her notes, requested the blood panel, arranged for imaging, and coordinated with Eli, who would manage the medical evaluation side of the case. When she left the room, Lana remained frozen in her chair, staring at Daniel as if he might vanish again. Back in her office, Claire locked the door. She didn't cry, she didn't rage, she breathed. The past hadn't come banging down her door. It had slipped in quietly, like it always did, with familiar hands, familiar voices, familiar wounds dressed in new clothes. But Claire wasn't the same woman they had left behind. She was the one holding the clipboard now, and they had no idea what that meant. "I healed the man she broke, and the woman I used to be." There was a silence that settled into group therapy rooms. Not the sterile kind of silence, the kind filled with waiting, with breath, with the invisible pressure of stories wanting to be told but unsure how. Claire had spent years learning how to sit in that silence, how to hold it without crowding it, how to honor it without demanding it break. It was in these spaces that truth often surfaced in its rawest form. After Daniel's intake, Claire was assigned to facilitate the family support groups while Eli managed Daniel's psychiatric and physical treatment. It was standard protocol to separate the medical and therapeutic teams in cases involving spouses or trauma survivors. On paper, Claire was a stranger to Lana. In practice, she was anything but. Each Thursday at 2 p.m., Lana joined the circle of pale-faced wives, weary husbands, and adult children who were still reckoning with what it meant to care for someone broken by memory or madness. Claire led the group with her usual stillness, offering prompts, but never prescriptions. She asked for truth, but never forced it. In Lana's eyes, she became Dr. Elliot, the composed woman with the short hair and calm voice, the one who never blinked when pain was spoken aloud. Lana rarely talked. When she did, it was rehearsed. "He used to be brilliant," she'd say, eyes glassy. Everyone admired him. "Now, he screams at ceiling vents. He sleeps in closets. He's not Daniel anymore." Claire watched her carefully. Lana dressed meticulously, designer blouses, pearl earrings, lipstick so evenly applied it looked airbrushed. But her hands always trembled. She kept them folded tightly in her lap, thumbs worrying each other like restless children. There was a particular cruelty in seeing someone perform strength while quietly unraveling. Daniel, meanwhile, was deteriorating in ways that were both clinical and personal. Eli updated Claire when appropriate: medication regimens, neurological scans, episodes of paranoia and dissociation. None of it surprised her. What struck her wasn't the sharpness of Daniel's decline, but its familiarity. This was a man who once spoke to her about memory like it was sacred, who used to trace the curve of her shoulder while talking about neural pathways and the science of emotional imprint. Now, he babbled about surveillance systems and swore the walls were whispering. But it wasn't just illness. It was fear, the kind that calcifies in the soul when a person has spent too long trying to stay ahead of their own unraveling. Claire didn't pity him, she recognized him. What Lana had taken, what Daniel had chosen to give her, was never sustainable. Their relationship had been forged in theft and secrecy. It had needed mirrors and masks to survive. Without them, it collapsed. Lana had wanted a life she could frame and post. Daniel had wanted adoration without depth. Neither had expected the cost. One afternoon, Claire found a folded piece of paper in the book she kept on the breakroom table. A copy of Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. It was one of the few personal items she kept at the center. Its spine-worn, pages annotated. The paper was cream-colored. No envelope. Handwriting unmistakably Lana's. It was never about him. It was always about you. Claire held the note for a long time, its weight disproportionate to its size. She didn't show it to Eli. She didn't bring it up in group. She didn't respond, but she did feel something shift. Not anger, not triumph, something quieter, like standing in a room and realizing the air had changed temperature. Lana had spent years chasing a version of herself that only existed in relation to Claire. She hadn't stolen Daniel because she loved him. She had taken him because he had loved Claire. And when that love was stripped from context, when it was removed from the woman who had inspired it, it crumbled. Lana had tried to become Claire. But Claire wasn't the same woman anymore. In private moments, Claire watched Eli with Daniel, her husband, steady and empathetic, never once asked about the layers beneath Claire's observations. He sensed them. He respected the boundaries she didn't yet have words to draw. Eli knew there were ghosts in this case, but he also knew that Claire had become someone capable of sitting beside those ghosts without letting them possess her. Daniel never recognized her, not fully. Occasionally, in his lucid moments, he stared at her too long. Once, he asked, "Have we met?" Claire had only smiled. "Not like this." He would nod, uncertain, then drift. There was no satisfaction in his decline, no vindication. It wasn't revenge to witness his unraveling. If anything, it was a haunting, a final confirmation that the man she had loved had long since stopped existing. Long before his mind did. Lana, for her part, continued to arrive at sessions. Her clothes became more subdued. her makeup lighter. She began speaking less about Daniel and more about herself. About the exhaustion of caretaking, the loneliness of pretending, the fear of being irrelevant once there was nothing left to manage. Claire offered her the same support she gave every participant. Measured, ethical, sincere. But beneath it all, there was an awareness, a knowledge that Lana didn't yet possess the vocabulary for. The woman leading the group was no longer her twin. She was a stranger with her face, but not her history. Not anymore. The Claire who had once begged to be seen by Daniel, by her family, by Lana, was gone. What remained was someone stronger, softer, sharper, and in this strange intersection of memory and medicine, Claire found herself not just healing others, but finally healing the version of herself that had once been shattered in silence. That was the real redemption. Not revenge, recognition. She saw my face, but not the woman I had become. The request came in the form of a single line, scribbled at the bottom of Lana's weekly intake form: would like to request a one-on-one session with Dr. Elliot. No specific topic disclosed. It was unsigned, but Claire recognized the looping cursive instantly. It had been months since Daniel was first admitted. His condition had plateaued, some days lucid, others lost. Lana still attended family group therapy, but her presence had faded, her voice growing quieter, her edges dulling. Claire had watched the performance strip away layer by layer. This request, however, was different. This was direct. This was choice. Claire sat at her desk for a long time, the form resting like a stone in her lap. Then she checked the schedule and blocked the last hour of Friday. Room 3B, neutral space, 2 chairs, 1 small table, box of tissues untouched in the corner. The windows looked out over a courtyard garden that had gone dormant for winter. The room was always slightly too cold. Claire never changed the temperature. Lana arrived 5 minutes early. She wore no makeup. Claire noticed it first. Her skin was bare, pale but soft, no attempt at blush or concealment. Her hair was tied back in a simple knot. She wore jeans and a gray cardigan, neutral, anonymous. She stepped inside the room and paused, eyes flicking to the 2 chairs. Claire stood slowly. Her clipboard remained on the table. She offered a seat with a slight nod. Lana sat down. Claire did too. For a while, neither spoke. Then Claire, gently, "You asked for this session. I'm here." Lana nodded, her throat bobbing. "I didn't know where else to go." Her voice wasn't polished. It cracked mid-sentence. Claire waited. "I've been unraveling," Lana said, "and I keep thinking, if I could just understand how you did it, how you disappeared and came back stronger, maybe I could survive what's left of my life." Claire studied her, this woman who once stole everything that tethered her to who she was. But what sat before her now wasn't a villain. It was something else, something emptier. Claire reached up and slowly removed her glasses, setting them on the table with quiet precision. Then she pulled her hair loose from the tie at the nape of her neck. Her face fully visible, familiar, but different. "I didn't disappear," she said. "I evolved." The words settled between them like warm weight. Lana's lips trembled. Then she crumpled. The tears came fast, ragged. Not delicate, not the kind of crying you do when you want to be consoled. The kind that's been boiling in secret places for years. Her shoulders curled inward. Her palms covered her eyes. She wept like someone who finally believed they weren't being watched. Claire didn't move. She let the silence do what words never could. Eventually, Lana found her breath again. She wiped her cheeks with her sleeves. Then looked up, eyes red but clear. "You hate me," she whispered. Claire tilted her head. "No, why not?" Claire considered. "Because the person who betrayed me doesn't exist anymore. She vanished the same day I did." Lana looked down. "You have a good life now. I can see it." "I do. Do you ever think about him?" Claire didn't hesitate. "I think about who I used to be with him. That woman loved with all she had. She lost herself in someone who didn't know how to hold that kind of love. And she had to fall apart to realize that wasn't her fault." Lana nodded. "I thought he would save me. From feeling lesser. From being second. But he only knew how to need not how to give. Claire didn't answer. Some truths didn't require echo. Lana exhaled. Eli, he's good to you. Claire smiled softly. He meets me where I am. Every day. No masks. No rewriting. Silence again. Then Lana stood slowly, her hands wringing the hem of her cardigan. I won't ask for another session. I think I got what I came for. Claire nodded. Then I hope you find what's next. Lana paused at the door. She looked back once, eyes full, not of envy, not of guilt, but of something close to reverence. You're not who I thought you were, she said. No, Claire replied, I never was. That evening, the sun dipped low over the ocean. Claire stood in front of the mirror in their quiet apartment by the sea. The wind outside moved the curtains gently, the sound of waves humming like memory. Her reflection stared back, older, quieter, fuller. The face was still hers, but the story behind it had changed. Eli stepped in behind her, arms encircling her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. She came? He asked softly. She left, Claire replied. That's what matters. He kissed her temple. You okay? She met her own gaze in the mirror. I am. Outside the window, the gravel path leading from the center curved down toward the main road. A lone figure walked away from it, shoulders hunched, coat fluttering. Lana. No suitcase, no words, just a woman heading somewhere new. Alone. Claire watched until the shape disappeared. Then she turned back to the mirror. She thought she knew me, she whispered, but she never stayed long enough to see who I became.